Tonight, looking into the pandemic, Scotland's COVID inquiry examines care homes as bereaved relatives ask for answers.
Many members feel a sense of anger and guilt about the standard of care that their loved one received before death. And there are some that feel that their loved one's death could have been prevented.
Also making the headlines, jailed for 23 years. Christopher McGowan battered and strangled his new girlfriend to death weeks after being granted bail.
Tonight's sport comes from Celtic Park, where Celtic face Atletico Madrid in the Champions League.
And a hocus pocus in Ayrshire, as one of Scotland's spookiest houses gears up for geysers. I'm Kellyanne Woodland in Edinburgh.
And I'm John Mackay in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6.
Good evening. Care homes were entirely unprepared for the coronavirus pandemic, which led to residents suffering from neglect, dehydration and starvation. That's what a lawyer representing families has told the Scottish COVID-19 inquiry. Sheila McCall KC said care staff had no guidance on how to prevent the virus spreading.
In one home, they were forced to use air freshener to clean, as all alcohol products were locked in a cupboard. The inquiry, now in its second day, has been hearing from bereaved relatives of care home residents as it investigates the whole handling of the pandemic by the Scottish Government. Here's our political reporter, Laura Alderman.
It's very hard to get closure now with the public inquiry.
John's dad was living at Home Farm Care Home on Skye in May 2020 when coronavirus took hold.
The home has seen 5 residents die after a major outbreak of the virus.
Loved ones were locked out of the home, and as John's dad became more sick with COVID, he was advised to video call him for what would be the last time.
Seeing the carers with their PPE on and their blue gloves and holding my dad's hand, and that was really poignant for us because in a way that should have been our hands.
His dad was one of 10 residents in total who died from COVID at the home in May 2020.
Families were let down. The care residents were let down. A home like Home Farm, as I said, closed the doors to loved ones before the official lockdown, and yet the virus still got in there.
John and other relatives are now demanding answers from the Scottish COVID-19 inquiry, which continued today. Lawyers spoke of the impact lockdown restrictions had on care home residents.
Many members feel a sense of anger and guilt about the standard of care that their loved one received before death. And there are some that feel that their loved one's death could have been prevented.
Some suspected their loved one was suffering from neglect, dehydration and starvation. Questions were asked and relatives were fobbed off. After death, some relatives were not given all their loved ones' belongings back. They suspect they were burned in spite of having been quarantined.
The inquiry heard how care staff were entirely unprepared for the pandemic.
In one home, the alcohol-based cleaning products were locked in a cupboard to which staff were not permitted access by management. Instead, they cleaned using air freshener.
At the start of the pandemic, more than 1,400 untested hospital patients were transferred into care homes in a bid to free up beds. Today, lawyers said this practice was ultimately a death sentence.
When the media reported cases of COVID in care homes, it prompted a very aggressive response by external agencies where, rather than support care homes, the members received several inspections and visits within a short space of time. This left the service managers and staff feeling deflated and worthless. This contributed to what felt like a culture of blame.
Lawyers representing the Care Inspectorate said it would use the inquiry to hold a mirror to itself and learn from the evidence as the probe continues on Friday.
Laura's with us now, and Laura, some really upsetting detail coming out of the inquiry today.
Yeah, definitely, and I think just listening back to it, it really does remind you of what it was like in those very early days of the pandemic. But this is just the second day of the inquiry, and these are only the opening statements that we're hearing at the moment, so it gives us an idea of what's to come later on in this first phase. As you heard in my piece there, the inquiry will pause tomorrow, then it will resume on Friday. That's when we're set to hear evidence from some of the core participants, those with lived experience. And first up is the Care Home Relatives Scotland group, who, as you know, we featured numerous times on this programme over the last 3.5 years. For families who are still searching for answers of what happened to their loved ones, this inquiry has been a long time coming, not to mention it's already cost more than £9 million and it has faced delays.
And just to remind viewers, Laura, this inquiry is running alongside the UK inquiry.
Yes, it is, but it's only examining policy areas that the Scottish Government had control over, and both inquiries are hoping to work together to avoid any material being duplicated. When the inquiry started yesterday, I thought there was an interesting point made by Stuart Gale, KC. He said he understood that for some people, sharing such personal experiences may provide a sort of cathartic relief, but he also acknowledged that for many people, they would rather be anywhere else but here. They would have never had these things happen to them that brought them to give evidence to the inquiry. We'll be hearing more of that over the coming weeks and months.
All right, Laura, you'll be keeping right across it for us. OK, thanks very much for that.
A man who battered and strangled his new girlfriend weeks after being granted bail has been jailed for 23 years. Christopher McGowan brutally attacked mother of one Claire Engels at her house in Stirling 2 years ago. The court heard the crime was beyond sadistic. McGowan burned Claire with a lighter and forced a wet wipe down her throat. He was sentenced to life in prison. Vanessa Kennedy was in court.
This CCTV footage shows Claire Engels just moments before she was brutally murdered in November 2021. The 28-year-old mother of one had been in a relationship with Christopher McGowan for just 8 weeks, and he was staying at the flat she shared with her young son in Stirling. It was there that McGowan battered and strangled her. He then burnt her with a lighter and forced a wet wipe down her throat. Today, the judge, Michael O'Grady, said McGowan's actions were beyond sadistic.
By the time her broken and lifeless body was found, she had no fewer than 76 separate sites of injury. This young woman was not only murdered, she was subjected by you to nothing short of torture. I shudder to imagine what her last minutes were like.
Christopher McGowan had 40 previous convictions, including 3 for assault. He'd been freed on bail to stay at Claire Engels' flat just weeks before he murdered her. Campaigners supporting women who were subjected to domestic abuse voiced their concerns.
One of the things we really need to improve on is risk assessment all the way through the process, so that anybody who is being considered for bail in the first place, who's breached bail, who has domestic abuse convictions in their case, that we are asking ourselves, is this safe? Are there women and children in this person's life that we should be worrying about?
Today, the judge, Michael O'Grady, said it was clear McGowan accepted no responsibility. He said he had not shown a flicker of emotion, not a hint of distress or a shadow of remorse. Claire's family were emotional as McGowan's sentence was read out in court today. The Procurator Fiscal described the crime committed by McGowan as heartbreaking. He'll now serve a minimum of 23 years in jail. Vanessa Kennedy, STV News at the High Court in Edinburgh.
Unison has announced further school strikes in Edinburgh, Fife and South Lanarkshire in 2 weeks' time. They would follow on from strikes in Glasgow and other councils in the west of Scotland next Wednesday.
The announcement comes with a warning that industrial action could escalate if council leaders impose a pay deal on staff. Our political editor Colin Mackay has been following this story. So Colin, what's going on?
Well, as it stands, staff in schools, that's janitors, learning assistants, cleaners, catering staff and others, will walk out in 4 councils next Wednesday. That's Glasgow, Renfrewshire, East Renfrewshire and Inverclyde. Today, Unison is giving warning to 4 more councils that staff will walk out in 2 weeks' time in Edinburgh, in Fife, in South Lanarkshire and Dumfries and Galloway. But as you say, this story has taken a significant turn today. Council leaders will meet on Friday. They say that they're under pressure from Unite and the GMB unions, whose members have accepted the deal, to implement it in time for their Christmas pay packets. COSLA officials are recommending that council leaders impose this deal when they meet on Friday to deliver that.
So, Colin, 2 unions like the deal, but one doesn't. How big a problem is that?
This is a huge problem for Unison, and Unison is by far the biggest union among council workers. 90,000 of them are members. That's 3 times the size of the other unions, and they say that if this was to be imposed, that would be considered provocative action. That would lead them to escalate their current strikes, maybe taking in other council services, maybe more school strikes. But basically, there is no longer any trust. There's barely a relationship between COSLA and Unison now. So this is going to take a significant intervention by Scottish Government ministers. Right now, they're trying to delay Friday's vote. They're basically trying to buy some time for more talks.
Colin at the Scottish Parliament, thank you. Other stories, and a 38-year-old man has died following a disturbance in Rutherglen. Police were called out around 7 last night to Farmlone Road. Detectives say inquiries are ongoing. A 39-year-old man was charged in connection with possessing an offensive weapon and is due in court tomorrow.
The body of a man has been found in Glencoe in the search for a hill walker missing for 7 weeks. While formal identification has yet to take place, the family of 56-year-old Charles Kelly have been informed. Mr. Kelly left his home in Tillicoultry on September the 6th and last contacted his family the following day.
Tributes have been paid to Lord Elder, the Labour peer and lifelong friend of the former Prime Minister Gordon Brown, who has died at the age of 73. Murray Elder worked as Chief of Staff to the former leader John Smith and as a special advisor to Donald Dewar. Mr Brown said Lord Elder's life had been a study in personal courage, while Tony Blair described him as a hugely respected party official. Now, with Scotland still on a high after Steve Clarke and his players qualify for next year's Euros, another one of our national teams is hoping to create memories of its own.
Scotland is to compete in the first ever Amputee Nations League later this week, and it's happening right on our doorstep, with teams from across Europe coming to compete in Fife. Fraser Nicholl has more.
Brian has been daft about football since he was a young boy, but at just 11 years old, his life changed forever.
Just a young lad playing football, slight limp. But my mum and dad sort of said, let's get this checked, and they found the cancer in my knee, and within 4 days in December it was gone. So I kind of thought that's me sort of finished with football at the time. Lost my way a wee bit and sort of gone a bit shy and wouldn't let anybody see me with an amputation. So that was for a few years, a good lot of number of years.
In his 50s, Brian got playing again and now represents Scotland as part of its national amputee football team. The rules similar to 7-a-sides and every bit as competitive.
Football's football. It's the same whether you've got a leg or not got a leg or crutches. Everybody's the same. It might just be a different way that they need to play football, but it's a ball and there's a foot involved and there's maybe a leg involved, a hand involved somewhere. But it's the exact same as the mainstream. We treat them no different.
Get up at least 4 touches.
And this is a squad with ambition as they get set for the first ever Amputee Nations League. Scotland is hosting Group D, also including the Netherlands, Albania, Azerbaijan and Kosovo. 15 matches will be played across 3 days and the players want a big home support.
We hope that a lot of people will come and just to see the game, because it's different. It's a different game of football. It's fast. It's competitive and it can get a wee bit rough sometimes, so that's good, especially when the Dutch have been there. They're a bit tasty sometimes, so just come and see what it's like, and the guys will love to see a big support there.
And for Brian, it will be particularly special after rediscovering his own love for the game.
To be honest, it's been the best thing that's happened to me. I came up my shell lots, I'm not bothered if anybody sees me like this. You know, I go about my village with walking the dogs and stuff like that with the one leg and the crutches. I've been with the guys, you know, going to Italy and Holland and all these places just with the one leg and boarding planes and through airports. It doesn't bother me now, but yeah, for a while it did. So yeah, but yeah, it's great. Football's, you know, made me a lot healthier.
And if they finish in the top 3, Scotland will qualify for the European Championships in France, which could mean the Tartan Army have an even busier summer next year. Fraser Nichol, STV News.
A planning application for the redevelopment of George Square is to be submitted. New features include play areas for children, seating and lighting, as well as stone paving. The project is funded by the Scottish and UK governments. A poorly connected public transport network is hindering Glasgow's economic potential. That's the warning from an independent research organisation, Centre for Cities, which says Glasgow should pave the way for other parts of the country by being the first to implement bus franchising. It comes amid calls for the integration of bus, subway and rail services, as Caitlin Hutchinson reports.
The saying goes, you wait all day for a bus, then 3 come along at once. But a new report warns a lack of integration, coordination and control between the different modes of transport in Glasgow makes for longer commute times and is having a knock-on effect for passengers across the city.
Just difficult to make the journeys fit together, 3 buses or something like this. You've got to study it very carefully.
I think it's went downhill a bit, put it that way. Definitely.
The price is quite expensive. They stop when they're supposed to stop. And the service is quite fine, it's okay.
I should just get the one bus company down in Port Glasgow and they do what they want to do.
The think tank Centre for Cities says Glasgow's economic potential's being held back, but says bus franchising would help connect hundreds of thousands more city region residents to the city centre within 30 minutes.
Well, what we want to see is a fully integrated public transport network across the whole region. So that means planning and coordinating the buses, the trains and the subway to work together as part of one system. The only way that we can achieve that is by taking the bus network back into public control.
The report cites 3 main reasons Glasgow's transport network needs improving. Number 1, Glasgow's economy is underperforming, partly because an estimated 300,000 workers are underserved by links to the city centre. Number 2, Glasgow has one of the lowest rates of car ownership in the UK, meaning people are more reliant on its public transport. Around 41% of people didn't own a car in the 2011 census, compared to the UK's average of 26%. And number 3, transport choices have environmental implications, with air pollution a particular problem in big cities like Glasgow.
But the thought of franchising isn't music to everyone's ears. McGill's buses fear they'll miss out if forced to bid for a franchise after investing in decarbonising their fleet. However, the report also suggests not doing it is costing us money.
When we compare Glasgow and indeed other British big cities to their European counterparts, they all underperform. And what that means for Glasgow and for Scotland is that there's a kind of lost potential of about £7 billion. And that has knock-on effects for the ability for people to earn good money and for the Scottish economy to be much larger.
It could be a move back to the orange buses last seen in the 1980s if Glasgow brings them back under public control. It would require large upfront investment from local and national government, but many believe it could be just the ticket for residents struggling to access the city centre and all of the jobs and opportunities on offer there. Caitlin Hutchison, STV News, Glasgow.
The sport comes from Celtic Park tonight on a Champions League night, and Rahman is there for us.
Thanks very much, John. A very good evening from Celtic Park, where tonight Celtic will be aiming to get the first points of their Champions League campaign. Brendan Rodgers' side face Atletico Madrid in their 3rd group game. The Parkhead boss believes his players can cause problems for any team, but says they'll need to be intelligent with their press against a top-class side.
We know at this level you have to bring your A game to be a chance of getting the result. You know, so and we can't just give what we normally do in normal games. You know, this is a team that's too experienced for that, and a manager that's too experienced for that, and the level that they're at. You know, you get world-class players. We just need to educate pressure, play well. You have to ride your luck a little bit as well. But hopefully everything all combined with the supporters, we can have a great night.
Well, Celtic arguably produced their best performance of the season at the weekend when they defeated Hearts 4-1 at Tynecastle. They take on an Atletico Madrid side which is in fine form. Diego Simeone's team have won their last 6 games, which includes a victory against Real Madrid. We caught up with some Celtic fans ahead of kick-off.
After the way they played the weekend, man, I've got everything to play for, and I'll tell you, I've got some games the weekend, and I'm very confident we'll get at least 2 goals tonight.
It's going to be a tough one, but hopefully Celtic can do it.
Yeah. How do you feel the team's playing?
Playing very well just now under Brendan. He's done really well for us.
Well, I think it'll be a tough game. They've got a lot of quality, but I think we've got a good chance to sneak a draw. That's a good result, I think.
Nervous, but confident we could get a result, or maybe a 2-1.
Well, earlier today, Celtic issued a statement urging supporters not to bring banners or flags into the stadium in relation to the conflict in the Middle East. A section of the club's fan base have repeatedly demonstrated their support for the Palestinian cause. Kick-off here is at 8 o'clock. OK, let's give you some news from Rangers now. And Borna Barisic and Dujon Sterling have been ruled out of the club's Europa League match against Sparta Prague tomorrow night. Barisic was injured in the club's win against Hibs at the weekend. The team's other recognised left-back, Ridvan Yilmaz, wasn't registered in their Europa League squad by former manager Michael Beale. Now, Kilmarnock manager Derek McInnes wants his team to kick on after producing what he says was their best performance of the season at the weekend. Kelly defeated Livingston 3-1 to move up to 5th in the league, ending a run of 7 games without a win. Kyle Vassell scored twice, and McInnes was full of praise for his captain.
We got him signed up in a long-term deal because it's hard to get number 9s. It's so difficult. So when the opportunity came and he was happy to commit, then we took that opportunity. And I think his 2 goals last week were terrific, 2 good headers. But his overall performance, along with Marley, was top class. We had a proper front 2 up there who done particularly well.
Livingston boss David Martindale says the tightness of the Premiership just shows how good the league is this season. Just 3 points separate 4th from 11th, with Livy in the battle for a place in the top 6, while also looking to put some distance between themselves and the relegation zone. One final piece of football news to give you that concerns St Mirren's postponed match against Ross County at the weekend. It has been rescheduled for Tuesday, the 28th of November. That is all your sport tonight.
All right, Rama, thanks very much. Right, let's get the weather now from Philip.
An icy start to the day will give way to a series of oohs and ahs. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
Hello and a very good evening to you. Over the next 24 hours we've got low pressure skirting eastern parts, but after that clears through, our attention is drawn to this low pressure out to the west. That will dominate our weather for the rest of the week and through the weekend. By next Monday it puts us into a northerly airflow, so things will be turning noticeably colder by the start of next week. Back to just now, and as we head through the rest of this evening and overnight, further outbreaks of showery rain spreading in across eastern areas. Further west it will be a drier night to come, but we do hold on to that cloud and we'll see some further mist and fog patches forming overnight. Temperatures not dropping below 5 or 6 degrees Celsius. Now looking ahead to tomorrow morning, it will be another grey, cloudy, murky start to the day. A lot of that low cloud, mist and fog will be slow to lift through the course of the afternoon because we'll have further bands of showers spreading in from the south through the day, just adding to the moisture. So temperatures tomorrow similar to today, highs of around 11 or 12 degrees Celsius. And then looking ahead to Friday, unfortunately another very unsettled day to come. Further rain spreading in from the southeast. It is once again heaviest and most persistent across eastern parts. Further west, drier, brighter spells through the course of the afternoon, but a breezy day for all of us with temperatures on average for the time of year, highs of around 11 or 12. Bye-bye.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
And finally, as we head towards the 31st of October, households across the country are getting into the Halloween spirit, decorating with lights and pumpkins like never before, gearing up for geysers.
One house in Seamill has taken things a step further, opening up their terrifyingly, tremendously decorated garden to the public, as Laura Boyd has been finding out.
If you're looking for a shining example of how to decorate your house for Halloween, then look no further than the Manor House in Seamill. From witches to skeletons. There's no bones about it. This is quite a sight, and the family home is open to the public for everyone to enjoy.
It's like really decorated and really nice. I like it that it's spooky. I like spooky things. I seen that big giant ghost and the witches too. Seen a big monster there and I just seen that.
It's my favourite time of the year, so come to this is just amazing. What an effort they go to and like how they manage to pull it off and get bigger and better every year. It is really just something else.
Well, the Manor House really is full of all manner of spectacular things, but the question is, who lives in a house like this?
This is our Witching Hour walkthrough for this year. For the last 10 years we've had different walkthroughs, each with a different theme. Halloween, although it's supposed to be spooky, you get newborns that come through and very young children. It's a family affair.
And Cameron and his family don't do this for profit. All proceeds from visitors go to charity.
This year we've actually publicly announced all 15 of the local charities or local divisions of, and the proceeds go to that, which is a great cause in our mind. Halloween takes about 8 to 9 months to plan throughout the year, and it takes us 4 to 5 weeks to actually build it and put everything in place.
Well, it's certainly worth it, and it seems my new friends agree.
Nah, I'm really not sure about John's tie tonight either.
Laura Boyd, STV News.
Could you make out which one of those was Laura? I wasn't quite sure.
Oh, John, you'll be for it. You'll be for it. And anyway, what about the ties? I mean, your ties can be a bit garish, a bit ghoulish, maybe?
I thought it matched the house, but there you go. What were your... no, let's not start.
Don't start.
No.
Good night.